What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Jim Loehr, co-founder of the Human Performance Institute and renowned performance psychologist. Dr. Loehr's groundbreaking energy management training system has gained worldwide recognition and has been featured in prestigious publications such as the Harvard Business Review, Fortune, and Time magazine. He has also made appearances on major television shows like NBC's Today Show and The Oprah Winfrey Show. Jim has worked with more than 250,000 top performers from various fields, including professional athletes, military special forces, and Fortune 100 executives. He has been inducted into 3 Halls of Fame and has received numerous awards for his contributions to sports science and to coaching. Get your bonus resource ready from corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/157 so that you can take notes on how to build character strength to make wise decisions.
I'll guarantee you got 16 seconds. You have to have a reset when you go home with your family. On the way home, play some music and really clean house so that when you walk in, you're fully engaged, you're excited, you're like on fire to be with your family 100%. You're connecting and they know how much you care because the greatest gift we have to give is full engagement to anyone.
Jim, thanks for joining us.
Don, I'm excited about where we can go with this conversation. You have quite a history in the sports world and in the corporate world, and it coincides with a lot of the work I've done. So I'm excited to see where this conversation takes us.
I can't wait. I've been a longtime fan. I love your work. The idea that I get to be on this podcast with you is meaningful. You know, you were a versatile athlete in high school and college, and you understood very early the mental side of sports and its importance. But now you've actually spent a lifetime in sports psychology, helping others to improve their mental strength, their performance. When you co-founded the Human Performance Institute, which Johnson & Johnson eventually purchased, you said it was the most amazing collection of high performers on the planet.
Yeah.
Tell us who came to the Institute. Who were the kinds of people that came and trusted you to coach them?
It was a dream come true for me. I spent the last 6 years at the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy collecting data on high performance in tennis. We had like 240 of the best players in the world there. We had Andre Agassi, David Wheaton, we had Jim Courier, Monica Seles, and on and on and on. I set up a research institute and director of sports psych and director of sports science there. I hooked them up with all this telemetry with heart rate monitors and videos of everything they did. I'd use computer programs to try to determine their ideal range of heart rate during competitive play. And then I interviewed them over and over again. I had thousands of hours of videotapes, and it was like learning all over again. It was like 2 or 3 PhDs. At the end of that, I thought I had a fairly good idea of what I wanted to do. A lot of the things I learned, I didn't want to make sure I did when I went forward because I could see the impact that it had on a lot of these players. We started the Human Performance Institute. I joined forces with Dr. Jack Groppel, who had his PhD in bioengineering, and we wanted to establish a science-based approach to dealing with high performance. Our mission was to help individuals and teams perform to the highest level possible in extreme or high-stress environments, with one caveat: without compromising their health and happiness. Once you violate a person's happiness or their health, the whole genius starts to evaporate. Eventually, we had 17 number ones in the world. Jim Courier trained there when he was number one, Pete Sampras. Everywhere you looked was another superstar. I had the access to them every single day. We had a 9-acre campus. I was in heaven.
I can imagine.
That was my learning laboratory, and I miss it dearly.
That idea of like, you want to try to figure out how do you push them to their upper max, get the very best from them without violating their happiness or health. We did an interview recently with Andrea Fairchild, who worked for Kobe Bryant for a number of years.
Yeah.
Many of those high performers, Kobe, Michael Jordan, they talk about the power of sacrifice, what they're willing to give up, including happiness and sometimes health, in order to achieve their very best. Why did you draw that line as the one place you didn't want to have people cross in order to be successful?
That's such a great question. So every person has a different limit of what they can handle, how much adversity, how many losses, how much physical training, how much hard-nosed coaching can you take before you start to come apart and all of that wonderful potential that you have within you starts to go away. It was very clear. There is a line you cannot cross, and it's a different line for everyone. Giving 100% always is not going to be the solution. There's this incredible importance of balance in a person's life that has to be there. Spanning almost 35 years at the Human Performance Institute, we collected so much data. The single biggest takeaway will completely surprise you. All we were doing with all these great performers in every arena of life, corporate surgeons, chess champions, and everything else, all we were doing is making them healthier physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We were raising the bar on their health, and that automatically took them to the next level. And we had all this data to support it, and that's why Johnson & Johnson wanted to purchase it. Health ignites performance. At the Human Performance Institute, I will tell you, we were in the health business. Even though we talked about high performance all the time and going to the outer limits of what you're capable of, if you start violating your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, or your spiritual health, your character health, who you are as a person, your values, your purpose, when you start getting lost there, the whole thing comes crashing down. So you need to make it easy for people to take care of themselves. You have to have great food available, encourage them to take breaks, and treat them like a world-class athlete who understands what it is to give your very best day in and day out. You have to replenish the system, make sure that people understand how to get recovery emotionally, how to build resiliency mentally, and how to stay focused. And some environments are antithetical to that. Terrible. When you look at the data on disengagement in most organizations, it's absolutely appalling. The more you care about your people, the more they will care about your business and go to the next level. It's creating an environment that allows health to ignite your genius. If you want to have a fully engaged complement of leaders, absolutely show them how much you care about them as persons, not so much about how many widgets they can make. Care about them first as a person, and then secondly, as a leader in your organization. The more you care about them, the more they will care about your business. And if you have a good business, it will flourish. Take care of your people, and they will take care of your business. It was an incredibly important insight, and it really holds true in every single arena of life. Health, it's a battle. It's the door through which you must walk. It's a fine edge. You have to be on the edge all the time. But if you just blindly charge and pay very little attention to yourself and what your goal is, summoning this amazing challenge that you're on, you're going to become a casualty or you simply won't reach your potential.
I love that. Health ignites performance. You've been preaching this for 25 years, yet today it is kind of a hot topic. Coming out of the pandemic, people talk about mental health. How do we be more alert and aware? But as you said, this is something that we should be doing at all times. This isn't about a pandemic. It's not about a window of time. It's not about return to work or work from home or any of those other things.
Right.
This is a strategy for success.
It's so interesting. I'm very excited about the fact that a lot of this is really coming to the surface. For a long time, I'm really hiring you for your talents. I'm not hiring you to take care of you emotionally and mentally and build your character and make sure that you're getting enough water and the right food and you're sleeping well at night. I'm sorry. I didn't hire you for that. That's your business. Why do I have to include all of that in the package? All I want is that talent between your ears. You work hard for me and you'll make a nice living. And the rest of it is up to you. We've learned that it just isn't the case. If you have a coach who doesn't care about their players, just out there looking for the results, and they're going to trade you the moment your performance starts to not meet expectations, those coaches are rough and they're traded very quickly. The coach of the Chicago Bulls basketball team, Billy Donovan. I love Billy Donovan. I've known him for years, and I knew him, as you probably know him, from Florida. He's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met in terms of caring about his people. And that brings a genius to the surface. It seems like we shouldn't have to worry about all that stuff as leaders, but all I can tell you is it's the person first and the corporate employee second. Get that order right, and you'll get the most out of people. Without engagement, you've got nothing. Discretionary effort makes everything happen. If I give you something special in terms of my capacity to care for you, you're going to push discretionary effort and go way beyond what's necessary just to pick up a paycheck.
I love hearing you say that. Those words, discretionary effort, are on my whiteboard because that's the thing I talk about. I try to every day. Many people understand the connection between physical performance and mental performance for athletes. But how would you describe that connection for business people? What do you say to that business leader? And I know you've counseled many who talks about, what I really need is for you to leave at home what is going on at home. And I need you to bring your best self to work.
Right.
What's going on out there that needs to be white noise? Because when you're here, you need to be fully here. And you say,
true. That's what we want. We want you to bring your best self. But just to say to someone, would you leave all that toxic stuff at home and all the complications? If it's not really going well at home, it's going to somehow ease into the fabric of their work environment as well. The longer you're in this space, and I'm sure you now see it that way as well, you can't separate the mind and the body in any particular way because it's a holistic system. It's brilliantly interconnected. Whatever's true for the body is true for the mind. Whatever's true for the mind is true for the body. It's an integrated system that defies comprehension by the most rigorous scientists in many ways. If you treat someone's body badly, it's going to reverberate mentally. If you treat someone bad mentally or emotionally or push them to do some unethical things, it will reverberate all the way down, even into their physical bodies. You can enter a person's capacity physically, you can enter it emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. You push one side of the equation and it reverberates throughout the entire system. It's a brilliantly designed system that we pull it apart to make sense out of it if we can, but in pulling it apart, we do injustice to the way it's integrated. And all these environments that we have are fully connected. You want your employees to figure out what do they need to do to get as healthy as they can, mentally and emotionally, at home and at work. If you have a lot of problems at work, it's going to reverberate into the home. Everything affects everything else. Maybe an employee just lost a mother or father, or they had, God forbid, a child who just passed. You realize that they've had some legal problems that have just been catastrophic in terms of the economic impact. Someone who's just running the business, they're going to say, I don't have the energy or the time to get involved in that. But I will tell you, if you want that person to come in and be their best self, they have to, again, realize that you understand that and you want them to bring their best, and you'll give whatever help is necessary so that they can, in fact, be here and now 100% present and are committed to helping the business grow in whatever way is necessary.
I love it.
But that's all communicated from you as a leader. Some of the great coaches, Coach Cade and so many of them, they realize they've got to get involved with the person.
The interconnectedness is a part of their leadership style.
Has to be. And that's how you bring people to the edge of genius. They all feel connected.
Yeah.
There's a hormone that is really powerful in sport and life called the love hormone, oxytocin. What it does is it actually binds you to other people. It actually brings a sense of connection, trust. What it does for the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal cortical axis, it's a stress modulator. The more oxytocin you have running through your veins in this biochemical beaker that we all are, the less stress you feel. That's why when you're in a high stress situation and you maybe go to work and you have a bunch of people you really connect with, you bond with, you feel great about, oxytocin rolls. Oxytocin is a performance enhancer and a stress modulator. When you see a goal and the teams run out and scream and yell, or in hockey, they go up and all go nuts, oxytocin levels rise in all of the players, in the crowd as well, is very contagious. And what that does is it reduces the chance that you're going to choke, that you're going to be overwhelmed with anxiety and nerves. So the more you have people that you actually can bond with and feel a connection to, particularly in stressful times, the better you are probably able to handle it, even if it's one of these things that's just ghastly in terms of its dimensions. Oxytocin is an important hormone for you to stimulate with your team members because that makes them better. It's actually a healing environment, and it builds positive momentum.
Wow.
We are social creatures, first and foremost. And the more we are alone, the more likely it is under stress we're going to have real difficulty finding our way out of the mess. There's just nothing that can provide the kind of balance and healing tone, that connection to others who truly care about you.
I love it. We're getting a science course today. This is awesome. Jim, you had athletic dreams of your own, baseball.
Yeah.
You said your dad pushed you pretty hard. You were actually relieved, interestingly, when you hurt your arm and had to shift to basketball and tennis. What did you learn during that window?
My dad was a brilliant athlete. He's also just brilliant. He was a civil engineer, but his dream was to play baseball. He got a contract to play professional baseball, and then in training camp, he hurt his shoulder, and that was the end of that. But he had a son. He had two sons. And every night, I would spend hours throwing pitches. At the age of 11 and 12, I could throw every kind of pitch. I could even throw knuckleballs and curveballs.
Oh, my gosh. At 11?
Yeah, I mean, he was teaching me all of that. And then the games, he was my coach for 9 years. The pressure that I had on me was absolutely tough. My dad was a very tough guy. He expected a lot of great things because he had a son who had all the privileges of learning from someone who'd been at the highest level. Today, they count the number of pitches that young boys and girls are allowed to throw, and you were not allowed to violate that. But I was pitching in a very cold, rainy day, and all of a sudden my arm just went. To this day, I can't throw a ball. You know, this dead arm syndrome. I didn't know what it was. And then also I kind of crashed and burned emotionally and mentally with all of the stress. So I started playing tennis. My dad played tennis, but not seriously. My mom played tennis, and I could still serve, but I couldn't throw, which is kind of interesting.
It is.
And then I got into basketball, and I became a very good basketball player, and that saved me. I mean, I still have a love affair with sports. Now I play a lot of golf. I love golf. I'm a golf addict. But it was a wonderful teacher, and it helped me understand from the inside what happens to a lot of these phenoms in sport who get very good very young and suddenly find themselves under the gun in ways that you can't imagine from the inside. All the press, all the money, all the glory, all the agents, all the people that want to be part of your team in terms of representing their brand and everything else. A lot of these players just can't handle it. They're great at maybe tennis, but they don't even know how to speak in front of an audience. And now they're on national television. They just completed a match they won. Now they have to get up and do a presentation to thousands and thousands of people, and they can't speak. And then they feel stupid. Now they're worried more about, what am I going to say if I win the match?
Yeah.
Maybe I should lose the match, and then I don't have to talk about it. I've been through that with lots of players. There's a lot there that we're now becoming aware of, that we're not sure how to deal with it. But health ignites performance, and health is multi-dimensional.
When you focus on the importance of mental strength in competition, tennis, there's a great physical aspect, but the mental component, especially one-on-one singles, is bloodless boxing. Matches can last for 4 hours. The conditions are hot and crazy. Funny, it's estimated you're only playing for about 30% of the time. In the physical part of it, how do you teach those you work with on how they manage themselves and their mind during those in-between moments?
One of the great opportunities I had at the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy was a videographer and a team that would video thousands and thousands of hours of people playing competitive matches. We just assumed that the time between points was just meaningless. No one watched what players did between points. 70% of the time was just downtime.
Right.
But something was happening between their ears. Something was going on, and that 70% is probably impacting that 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And no one had ever looked at the between point time. So I started looking at that, and that is where you tell a person's competitive strengths. The between point time, are they angry, upset, spacey, eyes all over the place, moping around, self-talk, trash, cheating opponents, all kinds of excuse making. So I took all the best players in the world, men and women, looking at the strengths, walking, toweling off, all of those things, and then what they did, and I would interview them. Those that were the best competitors did exactly the same things between points. So I developed a training system called the 16-second cure. Take at least 16 seconds before you start the point, to relax, or what I call a positive physical response. No matter what happened, you turn quickly away. You don't get too excited with a great shot unless it's really something big and you can get a little oxytocin rolling. You just turn and walk away as if nothing happened. I went and flew all the way to Spain to interview one of Spain's most famous bullfighters because I wanted to know, how did they handle fear when they knew that if they choked, they could get gored and die? Martin Vasquez, one of the greatest bullfighters in Spain, he said, "It's not obvious, Jim." Well, I guess not. That's why I flew all the way from the States. How do you handle fear? And he said, we handle it with our physical presence. If you've ever seen a bullfighter low energy or negative or sad, they have the greatest look of confidence by the way they walk. Every move is decisive, is positive. It just drives the sense that I am superior here. The matador walk. Mm. I took many athletes out and I would teach them how to walk like a matador. Even putting your shoulders back can stimulate the release of testosterone, which is connected to confidence. So the way you walk, the way you handle the between point time will clearly impact how you handle the during. And that video, which I thought was going to be just a small time deal, became one of the most watched videos in the history of tennis.
Wow.
And I just redid it, and it's available free to everyone. You can get it on gottatennis.com. In every sport, there are opportunities to fill the space with something constructive to help that mind reset, to get ready for the next opportunity that you have. And there's a process you can go through that'll help you do that. Just like an athlete, you got to reset. You got to have a routine that you follow. And then you want to teach those routines to all of your leaders. Whatever you have, I'll guarantee you got 16 seconds. Everyone needs that. You have to have a reset when you go home with your family On the way home, you maybe have a 30-minute ride. Let's take that 30-minute ride, play some music, and really clean house here so that when you walk in, you're fully engaged, you're excited, you're like on fire to be with your family 100%. You're not checking your cell phone, at least for 30 or 40 minutes. You're connecting, and they know how much you care, because the greatest gift we have to give is full engagement to anyone. It was really a breakthrough for all of us.
Wow. I'm making a note right here. I definitely have more than 16 seconds. You know, The Power of Story, one of my favorite books that you've written, you call the importance of story and narrative in shaping someone's destiny. Can you tell us a specific story about when you've seen someone use telling their story better to themselves to transform themselves?
This is a shock for most people. We have data streaming in, picked up from our senses. Our 5 senses are bringing in data, and it's streaming into this neuroprocessor between our ears. It is filtered from our senses, and then when it comes in, our brains have to somehow make sense out of all this data. Like a big computer, and you're funneling in data, typically organized according to what is already stored into that neuroprocessor, so that if you're getting a lot of data that is not really consistent with what's wired in already, you tend to purge it, you tend to question it, you put it on hold, you throw it out. Whatever interpretation we give to the sensory input that we're getting becomes our story. And our story may or may not reflect the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that we are flawed species. And when we think we see the real world, we are simply seeing our interpretation. More important than what happens to you in life is the story you tell yourself and others about what happened to you. Some rules of storytelling outlined in that book. One is try to get as many facts on the table as you possibly can that are kind of indisputable, real, observable, definable facts. Start with truth. And then organize this in a way that actually represent your deepest values and beliefs. Who do you really want to be? What's the interpretation here that's consistent with your purpose in life, with your values, with your character? And you're much more likely to get an interpretation that's actually going to help you rather than hurt you. And then, is this story that you're telling others, does it really take you and them where they want to go? There are lots of ways of wrapping something up in a story. But if maybe it's a dead-end story, what are you going to do with that? For a tennis player who says, I hate my forehand. I'm never, ever going to have a great forehand, but I want to be top 10 in the world. Well, that story will never get you there. The truth is, your forehand is not what you need to have it be, but you are willing to commit whatever effort or time is necessary to raise that to a level that will take you there. And that's what's part of your promise to yourself.
As opposed to just saying, I hate my forehand.
Yeah, I hate my forehand. I hate putting. If it wasn't for putting, I'd be the greatest golfer on earth or whatever. But what you say is, one day, I will have one of the greatest forehands, where I'll be one of the greatest putters in golf history, because I'm willing to put the time and energy in. That story gives you hope. It inspires you. It keeps you moving.
I need to remember that next time I'm standing in front of a lake with the driver.
If the ball goes in the lake, that's feedback. And it's not that you're a worthless driver. What it means is you're not finished baking yet. You still got work to do, and you have lots of time to get it right.
I like that.
We've learned that negative feedback is important, but if you beat yourself up with it, that imprints more powerfully in this neuroprocessor, and it's more likely to influence how you perform in the future. So you're better off just letting the negatives go, allow it to come in. Your computer's figured that out. You don't want to go necessarily to the lake every time. That was not a good swing. You might take a moment and reflect on what would be the correction, and then go to the next one saying, I'm going to be a little bit better. I'll get it. And every time I get it, I'm going to get a little better. I'm going to keep improving. Be very careful about the information we feed to this neuroprocessor. And it all boils down to the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
I call that your inner Yoda, your own decision advisor. sounds like Star Wars, but it really came up with in our book, Wise Decisions. We all have this voice inside that's our most important coach we will ever have in our life, the coach no one else hears but you. If we get that messaging right, our neuroprocessor begins to build confidence even in the face of great failures and great adversity. Keep coaching yourself the way you would coach someone you deeply cared about in the same situation. And all of a sudden, you begin to realize the most important asset you have is this inner coach that you are making better and better all the time. And that if we're projected onto a jumbotron in a big stadium, you wouldn't be embarrassed on how you're talking to yourself. What's the coaching advice you're giving yourself? It's the best advice you would give to anyone you care about. And that's when you know you're on track.
I love it. I know one of your favorite quotes from Mark Twain was the two most important days of your life are the day you were born, the day you find out why.
Yep.
Tell me about the day you found out why.
I always kind of knew that I wanted to apply psychology to life. My dad wanted me to go engineering, wanted me to go into science, into medicine. And yet I had a professor in college, Dr. Harry. He inspired me to apply the science of psychology to human beings and mental health. So I went on, I got my master's and doctorate in psychology, specializing in community mental health. And now I became chief psychologist and executive director of a very large community mental health center that served the whole central and southern part of Colorado. During that time, I realized I really wanted to do something a little more inspirational. In the 70s, I met an exercise physiologist by the name of Dr. Joe Vigil, who's an Olympic legend in track and field. And he kept pushing me, asking me, what could I tell him that would help him get more out of his athletes? And I said, Joe, I have no idea. But something alike went on inside of me. And I became intoxicated with this idea that maybe I could contribute the application of psychology to human performance. That was probably the beginning of my why. And I've always been so grateful for the opportunities I had. And I want to reflect in my own life what I am teaching others. Most importantly, I have 3 sons and 7 grandchildren. I want them to recognize in me that what I teach, I try to live, and that's the best way for me to teach it.
I love it. There are a lot of people who overuse the word teams in their discussion of their corporate environments, maybe even in their sporting environments. The truth is there are a bunch of individuals who are often disconnected. If you were helping a leader build a team from a bunch of disparate individuals, what are some of the things you would suggest they do to help pull that group over the bridge and actually become a team?
So that's a great question. I've always had a great team around me. I could never do what I did without an unbelievable team. You have to realize that it is not about you. It's about your ability to bring people together in a noble cause. We are a purpose-driven species. If we come together for a common purpose and give our extraordinary effort or attitude, make sacrifices and go through adversity, there has to be a reason for doing it. And the amount of money I make just simply doesn't cut it. The corner office gets hollow after a fairly short period of time. We need to have a reason for digging deep into our souls and taking the energy out of my body that I generated from the cells in my mitochondria and give it to a cause that's much bigger than all of us. It can't be about us. It's about what we can do to make this company and to make the world a little better. We all want to learn from each other, respect one another. And if you can't do that, you can't be part of the team. It's not about us. I'm going to ask you to bury your big egos and this sense of drive and passion for yourself. I want you to have passion to help all of the people. I want you to make everyone on this team better. Reach inside your soul, care about everyone, and I will try to do the very best I can, be organized, and let's do something extraordinary that has very little to do with any of us individually. That's how great things happen. Inspire them to go further than they've ever gone, becoming vulnerable, making tough choices to actually enable us to complete the mission, whatever the mission is. And hopefully it's a very noble mission, a mission that's actually going to make us all feel like we did something really important. And in the process, we all grew, become better human beings, and better connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Jim, I have to tell you, if your goal in your life is to be about making the world a little better in all you do, you have succeeded not just for many, many years, but certainly for this last hour. I'm grateful that you gave us your time, your wisdom, your energy. I'm a better corporate competitor right now because of you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, coming from you, it's a real compliment. You've been around, you've written countless books, I guess some like around 35 books, and you've been everywhere. You've been in just about every corner of high performance. So I love being interviewed by someone who knows the territory and has got great questions and has a lot of insight themselves. So thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. It's been really fun for me to join you. So thank you.
What an incredible conversation. I've always been a huge fan. If you were as riveted as I was by what he taught, his book, Wise Decisions, is out right now, and it's in the show notes. Make sure to click on it. Go order a copy, as I did. I've got it sitting right here on my desk. Normally, I give you 3 takeaways from what we did today. I can't do that. I'm going to give you 4. There was just so much wisdom being dropped. I loved, first and foremost, his discussion around the idea that every person has a different limit of what they can handle. Understand not just where our limit might be, but also where those on our team are. As he said, we don't want to push anyone past the place where they are still at their very best. He talked about health igniting performance and that the whole thing comes crashing down if we're not paying attention to health. My second great takeaway was when he talked about the more you care about people, the more they'll care about your business. We've heard that phrase so many times, but he said it so wonderfully. He talked about caring brings a genius to the surface. And that if we can care for those that we work with, we bring out their genius. Number 3, for me, his very direct instruction to us about learning how to leave things behind. What's your reset, your routine that allows you to be your best self when you come through the door for your family? And then conversely, how you do that on your way to the workplace. All of that is science-based. His work, his research absolutely makes it clear that we have to be attentive there. And then finally, man, I love this conversation about the most important coach is the coach no one hears but you. How do you talk to yourself? And your goal, your responsibility is to always be making that coach better. How can you make that coach better? Because that coach speaks deeply into you. Jim Loehr, what a gift, what an opportunity. I hope today you felt as I did that you're a better corporate competitor for having had this experience. If you'd like to connect with me and my team to talk about maybe how you and your team get better, please visit me at maxwellleadership.com/Don. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll.